Hi, I'm Kamna, and you're watching AppianLIVE Expert Cut, when we bring the expert perspective on all things industry, events, trends, and everything else executives need to know. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. Our expert has been all around the world, so we're bringing him in virtually. Today's expert is Mike Heffner, our Global Vice President of Banking, Capital Markets, and Insurance. Mike, you were recently in Singapore for Money 2020. Can you talk to me about the event?
Yeah, it was a great event. Thank you for the question. Absolutely. I think last week in Singapore really was about the future of banking. Quite honestly, not just in Asia, but really the future of the industry. Where are things heading? Some of the key topics that I found most interesting was the discussion around platforms, the discussion around robotics and clearly machine learning and artificial intelligence. I think there's a lot of confusion, a lot of questions as to what the future will bring, but there's no doubt that we're in the midst of a disruption in the industry.
With Singapore being such a big FinTech hub, you must have seen a lot of innovative companies out there.
Yeah, lots of great FinTechs, no shortage of firms with interesting ideas. And I think that really defines the Money 2020 event, the origin of that event. I think Asia's out front, and many of the global banks are actually looking to Asia and their own geographic footprints in Asia to really be at the forefront of digital, which is exciting.
What advice would you give to U.S. financial services institutions as they prepare for and deal with this FinTech disruption?
Quite honestly, I think the way firms are engaging, and we are already seeing that from some of the more interesting global bank brands, really they've got three options, right? So they create their own innovation labs, their own FinTech incubators, so to speak. Lots of smart people work at banks with great ideas. Sometimes those banks just need a voice. So creating the mechanism for creating a voice, I think hackathons are a part of that, but I think structurally the models that I've seen that seem to work really well are when these innovation labs have a direct line to the top of the house. And then the second is to partner with these FinTechs, partner across banks when you're starting to talk more about utilities. It's something we're seeing around blockchain. And then, last but not least, certainly investing could be taking equity position or actually acquiring some of these FinTechs and then integrating them.
So what did you hear about the future of payments and payment platforms at the event?
Quite honestly, lots of emphasis on payments, but it's really about platforms, and it's really about innovation around the value chain. While traditionally the idea around FinTechs, and certainly that was the origin, was always payments, it's gone much broader than that, and I'm really excited to see that. From my perspective, it's about digital transformation, and we're beginning to see the light bulbs go off, so to speak, that digital transformation is not just about a front-end experience. It's really about an integrated transaction lifecycle experience end-to-end inside the four walls of the bank, but then ideally actually extending beyond the four walls of the bank. Really, it's that horizontal integration around the value chain, and that's ultimately about delivering value to bank customers that's differentiating and really focused on outcomes.
Okay, Mike, last question. How can financial institutions keep pace with all the changes that are happening, whether regulatory, competitive, or technological, while still delivering value to their customers?
Change is manyfold, and to your point, regulatory change is the thing that's not going away. Those things don't happen on a dime. They don't happen, quick turnaround. So there tends to be opportunities for firms to react and really rethink. What I would say on the regulatory change is that often those are thought of as discrete one-offs, where I think there's much opportunity to actually create a regulatory toolkit, so to speak, where you can bring together many of these regulations and manage them more effectively globally, even at a local level. So if there's changes locally, how do you adapt that to a global model and deliver a global response? From a larger perspective, the change here is in banking in general. I would say, what is a bank? It's a brand. It's certainly a charter, the ability to do business in a particular market. It's a collection of customers. And I think at the end of the day, that's one of the key strengths of a bank is a bank will have lower customer acquisition costs than a brand new FinTech startup. But they need to be able to leverage. And, there's a major shift happening in the customer base. There's this massive transfer of wealth from one generation to the next. For banks to be relevant, they need to tap into the needs and behaviors of this next generation. And it's a lot more digital. It's a lot more about value. And for banks to compete, it's about bringing together best of breed. We talk about API banking, but it's coming. Open banking is coming, and it's really about bringing together best of breed, being agile, being quick to adapt and change, and always focusing on the customer.
Definitely. Well, thank you for your time today, Mike. It was good to have you on today's show.
Thank you very much.
This was AppianLIVE Expert Cut. Thanks for watching.